I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Geno TV and Channel 99. Our guest today is Sam Golding. Sam, welcome.
Thanks, Dan.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background on Nantucket and what you're doing, and then we'll get into why you're really here. But just give us a little background.
Thanks. Well, I'm from here, and I became an energy consultant in California about a decade ago. Started moving back, spending half my time on the island 5 years ago. And now I've been working on this affordable housing initiative in my copious spare time.
So, are you doing it out of necessity or because you're interested?
Oh, because I'm interested. Yeah, we're fortunate enough to have properties on the island, but a lot of young people in particular aren't so lucky.
So how does it work?
It's
first, what's it called?
It's the Nantucket Cooperative Project, and it advances what's known as a community cooperative model. So under that affordable housing solution, a nonprofit purchases properties, which are then provided at low-cost rent to members of the cooperative, who also manage the affairs of the nonprofit as an umbrella organization. So it's set up to be member-managed and self-sustaining over multiple properties if it grows.
So you have a property?
We've looked at over a dozen in the last year, crunched the numbers on 4 of them, figured out the right budget and range of affordable rents we can offer. And we're approaching the town right now to assist with, to provide the down payment for our first property.
How many people does it take to make a property work? I mean, obviously it depends on how much you have to pay for it, but in the model you're working with, how many people are you assuming are part of the?
We can offer affordable ranges of rent to 10 to 14 people in a property that costs 1.2 to 1.4 or 5 million.
10 to 14.
Yes.
It's a lot of people.
It is. These are fairly large properties. So typically they have 2 buildings. They'll have like a large garage apartment and plenty of parking. And then a main house with maybe 6 to 8 bedrooms. And
For $1 million too?
Yeah, we've found on the upper end of that. So we've found one for like 1.3 that met those qualifications. Most recently it was 1.5. Yeah.
Interesting. I wouldn't have thought so, but I guess it is the case.
Yeah.
So what is motivating you to do this, and what is your role in it?
Well, I attended a series of workshops, affordable housing workshops, that this group called the Young Creatives put on the winter before last.
It's Justin Taylor and that crowd?
Yes, yes. And so they were very successful. Over 40 people showed up to these meetings. And it's called Young Creatives, but it's a range of ages. And this solution really came out of that. And so it's very it's community driven and community originated. I've lived in 2 cooperatives, and I also my day job as an energy consultant in California is to create very large community energy programs. So I've consulted for the city of San Francisco, city of San Diego, county of Los Angeles. That's
big enough.
Yeah.
Those are big enough.
And so all of my work and all of my interests basically boil down to empowering local decision making and local solutions to these problems we face. I've long been interested in affordable housing, and this just seemed like an idea that I could run with and we could deploy.
So let's assuming you acquire a property, you have a waiting list of 20 people, whatever it might be. How do you pick the 10 to 14?
Well, we have over 50 right now.
Okay.
And
the problem's even more difficult.
Yeah, great. It's the right type of problem to have, though, because if, there was initially some concern that maybe people wouldn't even want to live in this sort of kind of member-managed community because it does entail responsibilities. You have to meet every week. You have to get along with everyone. You have to be respectful in close quarters, and you know, some people just don't want to live in that situation,
and some don't
or
do
can't.
it. Yeah, can't,
right,
exactly.
Right. And so the membership, you know, cooperatives are governed according to rules. So everyone meets regularly to discuss any issues that they're having within the house or with their neighbors. And part of the that makes it a very stable house, by and large. Part of that is also having the members select new members to come in. So we have an open application process where anyone can go to our website and apply. We've done Facebook campaigns, print and social media outreach, working through various formal and informal networks like Housing Nantucket, the town, the hospital, the school system, to try and get the word out.
Well,
and
it
then
sounds like you've done that adequately. If you have 50 potential applicants.
Yeah, and growing. So it's one of the many plates we're spinning in the air. Part of the difficulty with the membership list is there's multiple criteria that we have to hit for our first house. And it's difficult or unfair, impractical to have people commit to a house before we advance this to the stage that it's actually going to be a house.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Otherwise you're selling, as they say, a pig in a poke.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So we have to have certain, for example, 75% of our members in the first house have to be low income, which means 80% AMI, area median income or less. Then another 20% of that 80% have to be very low income, so 50% AMI or less. And then the remaining 25% can be up to 120% of AMI. So that's one metric that we have to filter through the membership selection process. We've been looking at when people can move in. That always changes on this island, especially for this demographic. Some of our members move quite often. Others, they have to commit to a year-long lease, and then it takes them out until future.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot.
Is there any financial commitment required?
Yes, the initial members have to put in about 1.5% of the purchase price, and then that capitalizes a $20,000 reserve fund that we use to manage any lower occupancy rates or unexpected expenses. And then they also contribute an additional, as a group, $13,000 or $14,000 a year to that reserve fund.
So about $1,000 a year for each one.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that's not much.
Not much, but when you put it all together.
Then they pay rent or some component of rent. Okay.
Right. Yeah. We're targeting rent to be capped, hopefully, at 30% of each tenant's income.
Which is a standard.
Yeah, it's
a
the
rule
metric.
It's a rule of thumb.
It's the metric that the state uses to assess whether it's affordable or not. So if you match that up against the range of income levels that we're serving, that could be anywhere from $500 to $1,200 a month.
Okay. What about when they get out? Do they get anything back when they get out? And do they have to give notice when they get out?
Yes. We have membership agreements and rental agreements that are fairly standard, and we actually base the model on the Boston Community Cooperative, which has been operating since 2007. And so they really just helped fast track all of our
paperwork.
I am eternally grateful for them.
What is it that draws people? Well, you have roots here, but a lot of these people don't. They're young people trying to make their way in the world, and they're drawn to that magnet of Nantucket. And yet, they might be able to be somewhere else where perhaps the wages aren't as high, or perhaps they are. But housing is certainly in many places easier to find. Not everywhere, but many places easier to find than it is here. And you don't have the seasonal. So what is it that brings somebody like Justin Taylor or somebody else to the island to subject themselves to this?
Well, honestly, Dan, shouldn't you be telling me about the follies of youth?
No. Because it's true of older people, too. I mean, Gino and I were actually talking about this before you got here, about older people who are drawn here because there's a perception that they'll get paid more. And often they do.
Gosh. Really?
Yeah, for certain jobs, they do get paid more than they do in Maine or other places like that.
Well,
anyway.
I can talk about why I came back to the island.
Okay. Why don't you? We'll put it in that context.
I found myself.
First of all, when you left, did you really ever expect to come back?
No.
Okay.
Not to
live
and work here. Right. No. But I past a certain age, I just missed the sense of community. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a global village. It has very interesting people always coming through most times of the year. It has a very tight-knit community year-round. And I found that was important to me, and that I wasn't getting that in the cities and the urban environments.
But you knew about it. You had it sort of in your back pocket.
Well, a lot of people come here and they expect to leave in a few weeks, and then it's next month, and then it's,
Well, fair point.
Yeah.
Fair point. You've lived in co-ops before.
Two of them, yes.
Two of them, you mentioned. And what was it like?
Some of my fondest memories came out of those experiences.
Talk about them, please.
Sure. The first was with in the Netherlands, with a dozen primarily younger people.
Mostly Dutch or all?
And German.
And German.
In their 20s to 30s, and then one old Dutch inventor who was 74, and was really the life of the place. Yeah, of course. Love to have you. I'll give you their number. And then the other co-op was 8 younger people in California, typical Victorian house type of situation.
Were they quite different, or were they very similar?
Well, the one in the Netherlands was a 1 million square foot abandoned grain factory on the banks of the Maas River.
You had a lot of room.
Yes, and it was very cold. So they were pretty different experiences, but they taught me really to work out my differences and clearly communicate with people, and also just the benefits to me personally for that sort of tight-knit group and that community. Not everyone gets along, but they get along to the extent that they can live together.
At least until they can get out.
Well, no, that's the point. It manages itself in such a way where that's never an issue. It doesn't ever compromise the home environment. You learn to be actually socialized. Mm-hmm.
Is living in a cooperative environment a phase in your life?
It often is. Mm-hmm. And that's partially why we think the model is appropriate here for Nantucket.
Do you want to live in one here?
No, I've
You've
I've
been
done
through
my
that
time.
phase. You've been through the phase. Okay.
Yeah. So we're expecting members, as they kind of stabilize and they grow their careers a bit on the island, they'll probably reach a point where they want their own place, and so they'll kind of move on and up. And the town has plenty of affordable housing programs designed to assist people when they get to that stage, if they truly want to go into home ownership. So then new members cycle in, and the process repeats.
So what's the average stay of somebody in a co-op?
It's very hard to tell, but based on member surveys, I think a third wanted to be long-term, maybe over 5 years, and then maybe 1 out of 4 said, a year or 2, we'll try it out. And the remainder, most of them, were in the intermediate range, kind of less than 5 years, more than 1.
Okay. Is it appropriate for couples?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And
yes.
They do, and they're...
Yes, we've had a lot of interest from couples.
Interesting. Co-op is run by the members, but there must be a governing body of some kind.
There's a board of directors. We formed a nonprofit last year. And so it's set up to be eventually, it's elected by the membership, and it's 5 House members, and then 2 community trustees, one of whom would be from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund of the town.
Right.
Currently, we have 2 future members on the board. That's Seth Engelberg,
Oh, yes.
Linda Loring,
Right.
and Justin Taylor, Young Creatives,
Right.
as well as Mary Longacre and myself. And Mary used to live in a kibbutz, and
So that's the same thing.
yes, and she helped create the Sconset community garden back in the day, and provides a lot of. She's our treasurer. Provides a lot of small business consulting and business consulting. So it's a good mixture on the board. Mary also has a lot of real estate experience on the island.
Well, so what's next for you once you get this under your belt?
Well, I'm trying to help launch the largest public power enterprise in the country in Los Angeles.
So you're still involved out there?
Yes.
With the energy?
Oh, yes, yes.
Do you plan on moving back, or are you going to try to do it from here?
I'll spend a few months there every year. I've gone there 8 or 9 times this year.
That's a trip, but I do that too. I commute to North Carolina. So,
Oh, you do?
Yeah. So anyway, well, Sam, I think it's wonderful that you're involved in this and taking it on, and I'm sure they're benefiting from your experience.
Yeah, thanks.
Be very interesting to follow it and see how it turns out.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Sam, very much. Sam Golding.